This program is part of the Infinite Potato Alliance. Visit us at infinitepotato.com.
I'm Shane Thomas and this is Analysing Doctor Who. I'm joined today by Jonathan Wilkinson and Emma Foster. And we have new Doctor Who to talk about again.
Yeah, fine.
Doctor Who is 60 years old, so the returning showrunner, Russell T Davies, was good enough to give us all a present, which is the first of 3 special episodes over the next 3 weeks. So we're going to be analysing episode 1, The Star Beast, and any thoughts you have about what you're about to hear from us, or anything else Doctor Who based, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. It's analysing with an S. So if we just start with the rating out of 10, please, Jonathan, what do you rate this episode out of 10?
I mean, it was complete trash, but it was amazingly entertaining. A 9 out of 10.
Okay, Emma?
I'm going to go for an 8.
Great, and I'll give it a 7, even though I actually think we're all feel similarly about this episode. So, Emma, if you tell us what from this you like the most?
Literally just kind of having David Tennant and Catherine Tate back, just to be really basic about my answer. Seeing them two again, and it's sort of almost a cliche of like they've never been away. It was just so enjoyable in that respect for me. So yeah, they knocked it out of the park.
Jonathan?
I mean, I was going to say the same thing. It was just fun, wasn't it? And they're at the centre of it. Everything fun about this episode was the chemistry those two had. And after the dark times, it was good to have fun back. So I will also go with David Tennant and Catherine Tate.
Well, a lot of the talk leading up to this episode regarding these specials is that this one was going to kind of actually not reinvent any wheels, and it's kind of Doctor Who that we've known and been familiar with, not in a negative way. This did feel like, oh yeah, I know this, but I liked it, so I'm happy to have it again. Apparently the next 2 weeks, a few envelopes have been pushed a little bit, and it's not going to be as, I don't want to say like predictable, but maybe generic.
Well, the next one looks like it's some sort of horror vibes from the very brief teaser trailer that we've had of it.
Yeah, and like this does feel like this could have been an episode, like episode 6 of an RTD season, and it's a fun addition to a series without being like anyone's favourite. And in that term, my thing I liked the most from this actually was the use of the Meep, who is a character. I guess Emma, you were maybe more familiar with the Meep than myself or Jonathan were.
Yeah, I mean, so it's sort of in the lore of, they sort of went into it quite extensively. If you've seen in the behind the scenes stuff that's been on YouTube and iPlayer, it was from a comic strip sort of way back when they first started doing Doctor Who Weekly, I think it was. It's been adapted for audio as well, so if you're a big Finnish enjoyer, you'll know the audio version with Tom Baker. People knew of Beat the Meat. I mean, considering that it could have been so easily extraordinarily goofy, the fact that I think that they kind of nailed it, with the fact that, like I say, a bit of RTD is just kind of swagger, that you can come back after all this time and say, we're going to have the dumbest fucking alien in this and you're going to go with it. And yep, absolutely everyone went with it.
I mean, it's, like, particularly in the first half, the character's almost like a parody of cuteness.
Well, I mean, that's deliberate, isn't it, you know? It
almost stood to reason there's another shoe to drop, because it was so absurdly adorable.
I made some little friends.
Oh, they're just toys.
Please be my friend. Why won't you speak to the little Meep? Be my friend. Be my friend.
I was expecting them to start selling toys straight afterwards.
That's what my friend said. My friend said they're going to sell toys, both versions. I mean, Christmas is coming. And the involvement was both endearing and hilarious. And when the other shoe drops, it does work. And the secret sauce is having Miriam Margolyes do the voice.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Voice work. I think it's important to state voice work is acting as well. It's not just getting in a studio and reading something off a bit of paper. There is performance involved, and I remember it was really mentioned. If you haven't, I would recommend looking up the Doctor Unleashed and iPlayer, and definitely the video commentary they did with David Tennant, Phil Collins, and Vicky DeLow, talking about the making of the episode and how Miriam Margolyes' performance in the sound booth in Soho, I think, informed some of the movement of the character when they added the CGI bits afterwards. So she made a really important contribution to bring it all together. So you can go from it was to something you said, Jonathan. It was funny but also fun. So you have her going from stuff like Oh, help me, to to hell with this.
Yeah.
And they didn't dick about the transition either. The transition was instant. That kind of stuff, it was extra fuel in the engine of the episode. And it made it more fun. It kept us more engaged. It wasn't afraid of being kind of silly in that respect. And we should have known we should never trust someone who refers to themselves in the third person. I still can't decide, though, which bit I like more, the early half of the kind of the ruse or when the real meat comes out. Because the inclusion of the bit where they've captured the Doctor and the nobles, and they were by the spaceship, and they bring what's it for the not the psychosis, but the trick with the eyes with the unit soldiers.
Yeah, they're like possessed almost.
Your hypnosis, I suppose.
Yeah, the hypnosis, the unit soldiers, and they're bringing the meep out, and it's like on their shoulders, and then the meep's on this throne and comes out.
God, and they're chanting.
Hail to the meat!
Hail to the Lord High! Hail to the meat!
And Phil Collinson, the executive producer, said this, that the meep was also hailing themselves because they didn't fail to make it fun. It meant it was all engaging. We never thought the meep was going to win. I don't think anyone would be unhappy to see that character again.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Part of me actually thinks, get Margulies in the studio and record some stuff now, because she's near the end of her life in the beginning. And I don't want anyone else to do this voice.
But don't you really want to hear the outtakes, though?
Oh, my God. I find that absolutely filthy.
There has been someone as a joke has already put online footage of the meep using footage of Miriam Margolyes in other contexts. And,
Yeah.
And it is just constant swearing.
Life is shit at the moment. It really is. It's terrible. Fuck you.
Oh, no. You mustn't.
Fucking hell! Shit! This is a fucking nightmare!
What I quite liked about the Meep storyline as well is because when the Meep first meets Rose and she takes her off to the shed, and Rose is basically doing the part of basically play in the film E.T. for a few minutes, I thought, oh, how long are we going to keep this part of the show up? Because this is going to drag a bit if we're going to have a load of kind of, whoops, no, don't see her, and wait for Donna to find the meat. But they kind of moved on from that very quickly, which I was quite appreciative of. Not just because I hate the film E.T.
That actually sums up a lot of the episode, because, and some people mentioned this, like the whole, we know Donna and the Doctor are going to meet again, and we know the potential danger if that happens. So are they going to just long that out until like minute 37 and know it happens within 90 seconds?
I appreciated that, because especially like you're saying, where it's in the trailer and it's all very apparent that it's all going to be fine sort of thing for at least, albeit temporarily, Donna's brain isn't going to melt out of her ears, and there's going to be a couple of other adventures after this. I was worried it was going to be like a, minute 49 kind of like, oh, I'm fine, end of episode. So I'm glad that, it just sort of, kept moving a bit. We had a nice chunk of time with Donna and the Doctor.
Well, and that's the whole episode, though. All the times that you thought this could get drawn out, it didn't. They didn't draw out the Doctor meeting Donna. They didn't draw out the discovery of the Meep. They didn't draw out the Meep's heel turn. Everything actually moves really, really fast as far as the plotting, which is nice anyway, but I think just nice because it's such a healthy change from where we were.
I appreciate that, but I think that it sort of links into something that you linked to us about contrast from the women who fell to earth, let the scenes play out, trusting characters are to be compelling, so they're cutting around them.
Yes, from Darren Mooney's tweet. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think if I'm being slightly uncharitable about that tweet, it's sort of like, well, yeah, because we know everybody. We know Sylvia, we know Donna, we know Sean, and the only person we don't really know is Rose out of the situation. So we don't have to do all the kind of, oh, whoops, here's the new Doctor, and we're getting to know them. We have to meet the new companions and sort of find out about them and have some backstory. All that stuff's been done already. It's a touch uncharitable to the woman who fell to earth, because all those introducing the Doctor type episodes have to do all the stuff of like post-regeneration, confusion, and we have to meet our new companions and then have a story as well. That work's all been done already. So they're able to kind of do a big bypass around the traffic jam that is the normal post-regeneration story and sort of go straight from after that, if you see what I mean. So I think it's a little bit uncharitable to the woman that fell to earth in that respect, but I don't necessarily disagree.
I don't disagree with that point. That's definitely true. Even the one thing that Davis did, allied to having maybe a slight helping hand already, was, and was it Tennant who said this in the commentary? Tennant said that, or Phil Collinson, one of them said that there will be people, probably not insignificant amount of people, maybe abroad rather than in our country, who are actually watching this for the first time, because there will have been some who haven't been born when Journey's End happened. That was 15 years ago. So people at our age, of course, the likelihood is we would have seen it. And there will be some people who actually are experiencing this lot for the first time. And that's where, even though it felt slightly disorienting at first, the first scene, the pre-credits scene, I think
we're going to come on to that in a second.
Okay, we'll get to that. But it definitely was something that left me slightly disoriented. And if we move on now then to the things, Jonathan, you first, if you move to the things that we like the least.
I mean, I know you're showing off your new fancy toys, Russell T Davies, but maybe the sonic screwdriver shouldn't be able to make bulletproof, laserproof, hard light, or glass, hard light, whatever it was. I mean, I always hate the over-reliance on the sonic screwdriver anyway, and this was just... You know when Doctor Who went really off-the-wall bonkers at the end of Pierce Brosnan's reign with invisible cars and stuff?
You mean Bond?
Bond, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the most egregious...
You Die Another Day.
Pierce Brosnan stuff, and Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the invisible car, and he can surf now?
Yes.
He surfed twice in that movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't like that. I was just like... So now we're just going to have even more. The sonic screwdriver saves the day of everything. Although it did towards the end, it didn't. It was just that little scene. But at the time, I was just like, I'm bored. Also, the connotations of having access to hard light. But that's a subject for another day.
Okay, I guess we think we know what yours is going to be. What you like the least?
Yeah, that prologue. I mean, as much as I don't mind it, a bit of a Shakespearean kind of someone walks on and goes, this is the thing you're about to see. To be honest, if you're going to do the thing of like, we're bringing back these guys and everyone that's known about it for 18 months, I think you just have to say, right, we draw a line under it. Either catch up or be confused. I think if I'm being a bit uncharitable, if it was just Donna's POV, actually, I thought that was all right. But David Tennant, I was standing on a very obvious green screen, just did now for me. It was a trailer. If that had been a trailer, in a sort of a hype up before the episode type thing, would have been absolutely fine. But before the episode, right before the credits hit, I thought, oh, this is a bit clunky. You know what I mean? I sort of understand the reasoning behind it, but again, with a show that's been on for 60 years, and you've decided that the first thing you're going to do back is introduce or reintroduce, like, the whole thing with the old face and old companion thing, I think you just have to say people just got to get with the programme. Because I think if I was coming to Doctor Who completely first experience with the show, and that's the first, I think probably make me more confused, I probably could have lived without that. Or if it had just been a trailer, I think that would have been fine. But sticking it right at the beginning of the episode, I'm like, could have lived without it.
It came off as a trailer. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It felt like a trailer. And it maybe almost was filmed as one, and then they said, you know what, why don't we actually make this the cold open?
I just think, as well, if they maybe put David in the close-up, but obviously on the TARDIS set, so you couldn't see the new TARDIS set, or like the old one, or in Jodie's old TARDIS set or something like that, and done it in there and made it a bit more dynamic, rather than, like I say, literally, he's obviously standing on a shelf in a green room when they did that. So it didn't do much for me.
And it looks like a planetarium screensaver in the background.
It did. He looked like he was at, that sphere in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't mind it as much, but it did feel just a little bit out of place and incongruous with everything else that we saw. And it was kind of I was watching with a couple of friends, and we had that. And I was kind of, I raised my eyebrows a little bit, and then the credits hit, and I kind of looked at them, they looked at me, just like, oh, all right, weren't expecting that.
Mm.
Yeah.
It didn't ruin the episode or anything. This wasn't for us. This was for the international audience. This was for we'll get more into them in a minute, but this was for it's on Disney Plus. All right, I've heard of it. I never watched it. Oh, David Tennant. Oh, yeah, I know him, or I like him from this show, whatever. I'll try it out. Which kind of is like how I found Doctor Who. Me trying it out at Christmas in 2006, I think. So I'm prepared to accept that if it brings new people in.
I mean, he's already said that this is the next series is series 1 because it's going on Disney, isn't it? So I suppose it kind of needed something like that, but you're right, Emma, it just looked a bit cheap.
Yeah, I definitely think you can argue about how they executed it, even if the basic principle, I think, is understandable. And some people have been, in an affectionate way, actually been mocking it a little bit on social. So I don't think Emma's the only one that thinks that at all. The thing I like the least, I didn't hate this. I didn't really hate anything from this episode. But what I liked the least was the use of like the noble temples in like the action part when we're really getting into the me executing their grand plan. Not done. I'm talking about the rest of them. Came off as a kind of passive and listless in the face of like the peril of the moment. Like if you look at when it's happening, if you look at a lot of the cutaways, there's kind of generic reacting when they're just like, okay, this is happening now, Yasmin or Carl, or Jacqueline, react, without rather reacting a specific way. They all just seemed a little bit too chill given what was happening. And that felt like there was just lack of precision in, here's what's happening right now, here's the stakes of the moment, so here's how would you react in that moment. Everything was just a little bit flat in those cutaways and the family in general. If you kind of go from the moment because they're captured, put in the van, and the doctor's like, oh, you might need to take us hostage. So when they come out of the van up to the non-binary moment, they were just there. And I'm just like, if you take them out of that moment, what are we losing? The bits with the Doctor and Donna had real energy and the kind of thing we associate with an ITD episode. The rest of it, when we cut back, the meep was great in those moments, barking out their orders. The rest of it came off as really kind of flat, and I'm like, just those little bits, they felt like some of the MCU TV shows where it's like, react as a person rather than maybe just reacting to the two words of description that are in the script. So that is the thing I came away thinking, that wasn't great. And I don't mean that, but with the family we used throughout the whole episode, like at the beginning, it was close to my favourite bit, the Noble household, with the discovery of the Meep and then the escape from the house. And just before the discovery of the Meep, those scenes I thought were really good. I want to, because she's not my MVP, I don't want to give a quick word for Jacqueline King as Sylvia. I thought she was really, really good in her performance. If you look at when Donna's like, oh yeah, something happened, there was a spaceship, and I know that was it. Rose asked, did you see the spaceship? And Sylvia's like, nope, no spaceship, I wouldn't. And you can realise for the past 15 years, she's been constantly in a state of anxiety, worried about something triggering Donna's memories. So anything to involve the supernatural, science fiction, the Doctor, weird stuff happening, is very much bury my head in the sand so I can bury Donna's head in the sand. It's important. She doesn't even think about it for a moment. And another key thing, you notice how Sylvia is now so much nicer to Donna.
I thought this was such a cool part. The whole relationship from Sylvia to Donna and then Donna to Rose is so cool. And this is where you really luck out having RTD writing this sort of thing. Because that family dynamic stuff, he's like, mwah, so good at it. That classic thing, I think that every daughter experiences with a mum of like, once they become a nan, suddenly they're really nice. And treat their grandchild far less harshly than they treated you. Thankfully, not my experience so far. Shout out to my mum. Yeah, the whole obviously the how Sylvia was when we first met her to Donna, and like constantly trying like knocking lumps out of her. Clearly she loved her deeply, but like obviously having terrible trouble like expressing that in a healthy way, and like the disappointment in her and stuff like that. And you know, the Doctor kind of pulling her up on that. So obviously that has had an effect on Sylvia. And now the relationship with Rose and her, and I thought the part where Sylvia says, you know, it was about saying that, you know, she's gorgeous, and then saying, oh, I never said that to them before, and that sort of thing. I thought that was really beautifully realised.
Yes, we'll definitely get into that in a minute. And your earlier point, Emma, it actually directly relates to an important line from Journey's End.
And for one moment, one shining moment, she was the most important woman in the whole wide universe.
She still is. She's my daughter.
And maybe you should tell her that once in a while.
Because we'd never seen Sylvia be really nice to Donna, ever. And you realize, oh, she has learned. And she has changed. And also it's a nice thing of showing an older person who had a way about them, but realised, oh, I don't actually have to be like this. It's not like, well, I'm just set in my ways, it's who I am. It's like, no, I can actually improve who I am. And I can be a better person. And you've seen that even though there wasn't a lot of dialogue and there wasn't a lot of screen time, you can almost map out the last, I mean, this is down to the brilliance of the writing and the acting. You can map out the last 15 years what that relationship's been like. You can map out moments, just little things that probably happened that showed a change in their relationship. And they're not as combative anymore. I mean, even when Donna says about, I have the feeling that something's missing. Like, would Donna have shared that with Sylvia 15 years earlier? Like, she wouldn't have shared that with her. She shared it with maybe someone else. Or she should have kept it to herself. But she's like, no, I can actually share this with my mum, because she'll listen to me. She understands. She's not going to put me down or tell me to shut up. You're being silly or something like that.
But mind you, she couldn't resist a little dig about her losing her job, though. That had to come out. Yeah.
That part of the family was great. It was just the bits where you're getting into the plot, boy, we need to move the plot along. Just some of the characterisation with the rest of the nobles just fell by the wayside a little bit. But not to the point where I hated it or it ruined the episode.
I will say one other least favourite thing for me in that, though. Tuna Madras. Russell, not a thing.
Apparently it is. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it either. In fact, everyone who's spoken about it, including his colleagues, have said, I don't know what the fuck that is.
You better smell it down the road if they bloody made it.
Apparently that's a thing in his family.
Oh, keep it away from me, son. No, thank you.
It might only be his family. I mean, obviously it's a South Asian dish, but even South Asian people might be thinking, I don't know what the fuck that is.
South Asian people are not putting a tin of tuna in a Madras. Don't disrespect them.
Oh, I mean, it probably wouldn't be a tin of tuna. Probably fresh tuna.
No, mate, I think that's a whole.
You think it's a tin of tuna? I mean, because traditionally curries are actually made with fish in India, so.
Yeah, but you know this is properly like just open a can of John Smith.
And throwing your Tesco's ready-made.
Yeah, like.
That's what it is.
I was picturing an Aldi was involved in terms of the ingredients.
Yeah. It's served with half rice, half chips.
Yeah, I didn't think it was gourmet cooking. But yeah, was Collinson again, I think, said, no, Russell says this is something he's had in his family for years.
He's taking the piss, I can't believe it.
Yeah, he might be the only family in Wales, the entire United Kingdom, that has that. But a lot of people have said, like, what the fuck is Tuna Madras? They mentioned on the official Doctor Who podcast, that came up as well, they mentioned it there, and said, no, I don't even know what that is. Have you ever heard of that? It's like, no, me neither. Apparently it's a thing.
I've just Googled it, and the top result is a recipe from 2015, so...
Is the recipe kind of authored by one R.T. Davis?
No, it's on some Flamingo Musings website. It's
all
kosher.
One of them they tell like half their life story before they get to the recipe.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Blah, blah, blah. Are they putting tinned tuna, or are
I
they
told
using...
you.
Ingredients, onions, tomatoes, mushrooms.
Rancid.
No, it is actually cans of tuna in this recipe.
I'm beginning to wonder now if this blog or whatever it is, this person deserves like a script credit.
They're probably getting a whole lot of unexpected traffic to their website at the moment.
Yeah, probably. Like, wow, this blew up.
Okay, so one thing that we have to talk about, and we already kind of touched on a bit, is Disney now involved. And Disney clearly gave Russell T some money to spend.
Wow, didn't they just?
Yeah, Emma, where did you see that Disney money?
The Meep. The fact it was a practical effect, not just CG. I mean, there was CG involved, obviously, but the fact, they built a practical prop, all that stuff with the facial things, the voice acting, the physical performance. I mean, that is not cheap. Before, they probably would have done it all CGI with just, probably a bloke in like a green body stocking crawling around the set. It didn't look cheap. I mean, let's say just in the facial expressions, the amount of work and time and, frankly, money that sort of thing costs is not inconsiderable. I mean, that, and as well, you've got that whole unit fight on the street and things like that. Before, you would have had just Tennant looking through the curtains going, oh, my God, and just like flashes of light. But now this, you got the whole fight with like a whole... I appreciate the Alien Army was like 5 blokes, but still, full costumes, full units, cars, bangs, all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, yeah, they definitely put the money on the screen.
Anything else, Jonathan, in terms of like Disney money, when you saw it?
The Street Battle already mentioned the hard light tablet. Sonic Screwdriver, when he makes the little screen and brings it up and starts tapping around on it and stuff, that just looked really good. And I can't imagine it looking that... There's probably a reason why they didn't try it before then. But the Street Battle, like Emma said, it just actually felt like an actual battle as opposed to like two men going pew-pew at each other. The other thing, you mentioned the comics earlier. I know this isn't the Disney money, but the comics were actually published by Marvel. They've probably made the rights fairly easy for him to get. Oh, we own this. Cool.
Actually, before I forget about it, talking of Marvel, I do wonder if when they took this deal that Russell got sent a load of like Blu-rays of all the films, because there were definitely more than a few shout-outs to definitely the MCU, because Unit have apparently got a Stark Tower now, and the design is extremely similar.
Yes, in the episode. And
you got the whole thing of the Doctor reciting the trigger words to Donna, which is straight out of The Winter Soldier. So I was like, you've been watching at least phase 1 of the MCU, Russell.
Well, he does that anyway. I remember when he was promoting It's a Sin, and all he wanted to do when he was speaking with American interviewers, what he wanted to talk about, because this is WandaVision was just done, and he just wanted to talk about WandaVision, because he's a massive fan of WandaVision. I mean, I don't know if the rest of the world have got this, but obviously we have this Whoniverse tab section on iPlayer now, which obviously is very much like a Disney Plus tile. I mean, the opening, and again, I don't know if the rest of the world are seeing this, I believe please tweet, email in or whatever, because I'd be interested to know if before the episode you get the kind of Hooniverse intro like you get, at the start of any MCU project.
Well, apparently the rights are all over the place for the rest of the world at the minute, aren't they? Disney have got all the new stuff, but all the old stuff is on Amazon or something.
It's on Max, I think.
Yeah.
HBO Max.
Yeah.
I think the older stuff's on it. They still have the license for that. So I think if you want to do old catch-ups, you actually need a Max subscription. But
whereas BBC have just gone, here, have all of Doctor Who. Well, almost all of Doctor Who.
A large percentage of it, if not everything. But yeah, so there's that Hooniverse thing. So yeah, I mean the MCU influence in RTD, very much like Buffy and Joss Whedon was with his first, RTD 1.0. There has been and will continue to be a significant Marvel influence on his Doctor. Maybe not. I don't think we'll see crossovers, anything like that. But in terms of aspects of format and formatting, I think you can see the influence. I think that's naturally going to be there. I mean, as far as Disney money, you see it from the very opening titles. There's more there. I think they look great. I'm very happy with them.
There's a lot of polish that's not been there before, I think.
Yeah, I mean, even the cameras they're using look different. It visually looks slightly, just even the basic dialogue scenes, it looks crisper. And the thing we haven't mentioned yet, as far as the budget, the new TARDIS.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which I personally love.
I think there was not a lot of acting going on with Catherine Tate and David Tennant.
He said there wasn't at all.
I mean, but just watching him run entirely round it, so it's just not this much of it, and the rest is like a green screen again. It's physically there. It's remarkable, and apparently all these, again, they said in the commentary, all the lights in the roundels and stuff, they're going to be able to do some cool stuff that we haven't seen yet. So yeah, looking forward to that. Very exciting. Yeah,
because the running around, Tennant said that was his idea, and then he said he started to regress it by take 8. Because there's quite a lot of running. I mean, the guy's in his 50s now.
Yeah, there was a nice little jab by Donna at that one.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say that. We can talk about that now. That may be the funniest line when Donna says, you can get away wearing it tights up to the age of about 35 and no more. I do love that classic white look. It looks like an older version of the TARDIS, but doesn't look dated. It looks brand new. And, I mean, I do worry that this might be like the Kick Chris Chibnall hour. But I said so often during the last 4 years, why is the TARDIS so dark? And, they switched all the lights on. You can actually see it. You can see everything. I know you mentioned the Sonic, Jonathan, obviously. You can see that's very much we can do this now. I suspect, even with the bulletproof glass, because obviously we know Davis's tenure was very much anti-gun and very much hated guns in all its forms. So the idea of a Doctor I can create something bulletproof, it does kind of track, even if it is stretching credulity quite a lot. And it felt like this was something he would have done in the past if he could have afforded it.
That is the difference, I suppose, that in doing a limited first series and having this being a co-production, essentially that it's widened the scope of what they can do, I suppose, now. They've got more time, more budget. So all those things, I suppose, in the past he's had to go, I had to cut that out because no way we could afford it. It's going to take far too long. That's open to him now.
Definitely. I mean, Vicky DeLuise, the producer, said that as far as future episodes, because that massive TARDIS, and I thought this scene inside that TARDIS, that in terms of episodes goes, directors looking at that space now, they're directors looking at that space and their eyes are popping out because it's what we could film in here, the camera shots we could have in here, the way we could block scenes in here, which you couldn't do in any previous version of the TARDIS. And she's a producer having to tell them to hurry up because it's we could do a shot here, and it's yeah, we've got what we need. Can we please move on to the next bit? We've got 8 more scenes to film. But that's something as a producer you have to actually kind of make sure the train stays on the tracks, because directors see that space and it unlocks their creativity more because there's just so much more possibility. We'll see what maybe with Ruby and the Doctor, with Ruby 20 yards above the Doctor and the Doctor shouting up to Ruby, can you get me this? Where is it? It's in that room back there. And then Ruby runs off and then comes back, I can't find it. And it's where did you look? And it's in the door you told me. No, not that door, the third door. That kind of thing. You can do that kind of stuff now, which you wouldn't do that as much. But yeah, definitely you can immediately see, not to a ridiculous degree, it still looks like Doctor Who, but there's on Dave Chappelle's old sketch show, and it's ironic to mention him given what we'll talk about next, but on his old sketch show, one of his characters, or one of his actual other actors, cast members, had a catchphrase where they go, "I'm rich, bitch!" You can see that. You can see that here. And what's good is, as I understand, I'd seen one screenshot It's happened, I think, in North America, maybe the rest of the world, that even before the episode, and I assume now, open your Disney Plus, you go on the website, open the app, and the first thing there is Doctor Who. Even before the episode drops, like Doctor Who coming this Saturday. I'm sure it helps. They're not showing any Marvel or Star Wars stuff right now. So this is their newest thing, but this is the thing they're pushing. So hopefully that would have grabbed a lot of new fans. And, Disney aren't dicking about. They're going to try and do their bit, which is nice because you just felt the show was dicked about for like 4 years. Okay, our next segment, we don't have to go too deep on this, but it's something we do have to mention because it definitely was one of the big takeaways from Saturday. This episode seems to have a message for the TERFs.
And that message is fuck y'all.
Yeah, and we have to obviously be careful with our language here because none of us are trans.
I did mention this to my husband because those that don't know, Rory's trans. I was like, yeah, just going to discuss the trans issues with two other cis people, and Rory's response was just like God intended.
Yeah, just like cisgender God intended. Well, hopefully what we discuss here doesn't precipitate Jonathan getting an immediate divorce. Jonathan, just obviously thoughts on what was not. I don't think it was done with a sledgehammer, but the message was clear.
It needed to be, I think, to be fair. I mean, some people, it's over the top, and I was like, no, Russell T Davies was clearly setting down his thing, saying, this is my doctor. My doctor will be inclusive of everybody. And if you don't like it, fuck off, because I'm in charge now, bitches. I mean, the ending was a bit like the whole binary, non-binary. It was like, okay, Russell, calm down. But it's like the most realistic part as well. So she gets dead named, and then I actually think the most realistic scene was probably where Sylvia slips up and immediately backtracks into like 1,000,001. Like, oh no, I didn't mean that. It's like, no, I think it's important that we understand that people do slip up, with especially pronouns when you're used to one and then it absolutely turns out to be a different one. And if you apologise and move on, most people are like, oh, okay. It's like, we are here. I am going to accept trans people. Russell T Davies, which in the past he has been criticised for when he's written his, not It's a Sin, but like his earlier gay stuff has just been a bunch of cis gay men and there were no other genders or sexualities. But he's definitely embracing it now, isn't he? Let's go. Let's bring more queer into Doctor Who, even though I already had lots of it.
Yeah, although I said I wasn't going to. I did sort of obviously look around Twitter in the run-up and after the episode, and it just makes you pray for death. Some of it really was awful. I mean, and literally every sort of horrible thing you can think of said about Yasmin Finney and RTD, and some of these people just don't want trans people to exist, pretty much. And I thought, do you know what? If you genuinely watch that and you see that as grooming, question mark, you're just so terminally brain rotted. There's kind of nothing that can be done to help somebody who genuinely isn't just trolling and thinks that. The fact that RTD just set out the stall and said, this is the show, this is what we're saying, everyone get bent, essentially. If you don't like it, go away, stop watching this show. And I think that when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, when he was sitting with Yasmin Finney and they were talking about the experience that she's had in her life, and I think you can really see his passion for it. I can't think of another way to describe it, really. He's so passionate about these issues. And when he was talking about the children need special bit with Davros stuff about representing disability and things like that, if you're not down with this, if you genuinely think these things, then this show is not for you and you should probably just go away. There's no helping people who genuinely think this, so let's not bother.
I don't think there's going to be every single episode is going to be the sledgehammer to the face. I think he wanted to set out his stall and he set it out.
I didn't see it as a sledgehammer though. I mean, I thought, obviously watching it, I just think this is just people's lives.
Well,
trans people.
Yeah, I know, but
and this is what happens. And I think it was actually people were sort of making things up based on the trailers that they saw. I thought it was just sort of a representation of kind of everyday life, that what RTD is very good at. And this is where I kind of pull out my kind of mum card, where I really love that bit where Donna said to Rose, I would burn the world for you, and things like that. And, I just think, relatable, 100%. Obviously, my daughter is 3. I don't know what her future holds, obviously, but I hope that I can be that sort of mum for her. If this is, that her identity is not what it is at the moment, if you see what I mean. So it was relatable, but I didn't see it as very heavy-handed. I thought that it was just like that slice of life stuff that RTD does so well.
One of the things that you mentioned of the dead naming scene, like on the official Doctor Who podcast, other Doctor Who podcasts exist, that Juno Dawson, who herself is trans, and the writer, she wrote Doctor Who Redacted, you know, the BBC Sounds kind of
which is really good.
Yeah, audio play. Apparently, I haven't finished it, the second series. Apparently, it has a couple of Easter eggs for this episode.
Oh, I didn't know there was a second series. Hey.
Yeah, second series. It's on Sounds, so it's easy to find. But she said, yeah, there is elements of that are quite accurate.
I feel that it is important to show the lived reality of trans people. Rose is played by an amazing trans actor, Yasmin Finney from Heartstopper, as we know. And it happens, you know, and I think the important thing here is that the characters who misgender Rose aren't presented as aspirational characters. You know, we see, and I think it's important that we see how upset, if stoic, Rose is, how it really upsets Donna. You know, and I think that's important. I think, to my mind, as a trans person and as a writer, there is no point in trying to sugar the pill. Trans people face transphobia. And it felt accurate and honest to me that Rose is misgendered. It felt honest and right that Sylvia sometimes struggles with pronouns because she's learning, because she understood her grandchild was one thing, and then Rose chose a different life for herself.
Davis himself said, in terms of depicting this, he says if you introduce these images to young people, and his words are interesting, he said happily and calmly, and that's what, at least to me, I could be mistaken, it was clear, but it didn't feel like it hammered it home. We're joking, you know, that the message was go fuck yourself, but I don't think that's how it came from the episode. Like, no one got really worked up or exercised, apart from Donna a little bit, which is as much as just protecting your child as any parent would in that situation. But it didn't feel like someone looked down the lens of the camera, addressed the audience directly regarding what it may be like to be trans or to have a loved one who's trans.
The political environment around trans people these days, just by merely having them exist in the public eye, is like, oh, that's a political statement. And, you know, we used to think this about having gay people on television. And
absolutely.
It's like, now it's like if you had a soap that didn't have a gay person on it, you'd be like, well, that's not very realistic, is it?
Well, I mean, I think because us three are sort of old enough to remember in the early 90s when there was a soap here called Brookside that had a lesbian relationship in it, and it was like, oh my god, it was reams of headlines about it and shocking, and because they kissed on screen and stuff, and it was like, you know, handbags at dawn sort of thing. And, you know, now
the same kind of rhetoric as well about the fall of civilization and corrupting children and corrupting society, and this isn't family values.
Yeah, the grooming thing. The
same stuff like you see now was the same stuff that's been said then. Many have said it anyway, like we're not saying anything new, but the notion of the rhetoric, it really is a Control-C, Control-V. It's what was said then and what's been said now, just for a different press group.
I said to Chuck, my husband, because Chuck's a fair bit older than me, and he remembers things like the Black and White Minstrel Show. To me, I thought was made up until I saw a clip of it, and was just shocking to me. Sound like he's a million years old. He's not. He's only 15 years older than me. So that was completely normal when he was a kid to grow up watching, you know, people blacked up and dancing and stuff. Honestly, hand on my heart, I think that the way that trans people are treated on TV now, in another 20, 30 years, our children, our grandchildren are going to look back on it and go, that's absolutely disgusting. But the same way we look at the Black and White Minstrel Show now.
Well, Dave's made an important point in something in the episode, that it was significant that despite the transphobia Rose receives, she doesn't get any of that at home. She's totally loved and protected at home. She's safe there, because you can easily do the thing where they are persecuted at home or have to not come out because they might be kicked out of the home, which is some people's experience. But
oh Christ, yeah.
In home, you're seeing them totally accepted as a person, as a human being first, and totally loved. And if someone makes a mistake, like you mentioned, Sylvia did, I mean, she catches herself. Sylvia catches herself doing it immediately. And this is interesting for a character who is older, that she says, you look beautiful, you look gorgeous, and then late thinks, should I have said that? Is that sexist? And like, it's not, but she's just thinking about the notions of like gender and gender stereotypes in a way she never would before. She's thinking out loud when she says, and then the misgender accidentally comes, and then she catches herself. And actually, I think feels like a more accurate depiction than the kind of rhetoric we tend to get from a lot of the established press. I know the polls are backsliding on this, but I think generally polling in terms of what the British public think about trans people, I think most people are generally like, whatever, I don't really care.
I think, to be honest, with a lot of the general public, it's that what Russell was saying about sort of shining a light on things, because all these attitudes kind of exist in the darkness. These two things exist together. Like, I think, honestly, a lot of people who, like, they know a trans person go, yeah, they're sound, don't worry about it, but then will also read some of their shit that's online the same. So it's this weird dynamic of like, oh, my mate doesn't count, if you see what I mean. The more that like the shone on it and the more normalised it is, the easier it gets.
It's also trying to break down that eggshell walking thing. We got married. Rory doesn't have a gender identification certificate, and we discussed it like pretty much straight away because legally Rory's my wife. And the registrars came in and they had that little discussion with you beforehand, and they were clearly shitting themselves a little bit. Oh. And they're like, "Has anyone discussed this with you?" Like, yeah, we did. Don't worry, I already knew about it. We discussed it the very first day after we got engaged. I was like, if you want to be legally my husband, we're going to have to do this. And Rory was like, I can't be arsed doing that. And just like, we're just going to have to say it like twice. Is that okay? And it's like, yeah, it's fine. And they just lifted off their shoulders because they were like, yeah, we did a wedding where, and they were like, and do all your guests know? I was like, yeah, all the main guests knows, because if we haven't told Rory's mum, she probably would have thrown things. I was like, no, this is legally and it's Rory's decision. It's fine. And the registrar's like, yeah, we did a wedding where they didn't tell anyone this was going to happen. So when I did say, like, and they didn't reveal what gender, which way around it was, people started shouting at us and having a massive go at us because people getting married had not warned the guests that this was going to happen, whereas we were just yeah, this is going to happen, we're fine with it. It's part of the massive growth. When I first met them, they were all like, yeah, I don't really want anyone to know. Now they're just like, trans flags everywhere.
Yeah, and it will help. I don't want to do these culture changes the world, it doesn't, but it adds to the volume and the mood music, and a mainstream show like this, that the ratings were pretty good for the weekend, means that there will be people confronted with it that didn't think about it before.
And at a proper time as well for families at 6 o'clock.
Yes, I mean, it's not so much a negative on the introduction of a trans character at all, but as far as the depiction goes, we have the meta-crisis moment, it's being passed down, we have Dr. Rose as well as Dr. Dunner, and Rose says, I think the first time I feel like me. We didn't, and you could argue she didn't at the time, but I would love to see what being her looks like, because I think aspects, and some people have said this online, I think it's been fair-minded criticism, even though some may disagree, of Yasmin Finney's performance came off as a little bit flat, a touch one note, and I think the easy explanation for that is because, well, everything's repressed, because she's going through the issue of transitioning and finding herself in the world as she is now. We've seen aspects of the outside world not accepting her. The Meep at one point said the Meep is all alone, and Rose is like, I'm paraphrasing, but basically can relate. And then with this moment is almost a lessening of the burden, and it's like, oh, I feel I can be myself now. And we don't get to see what that's like.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see it, because I think she's coming back, isn't she, sir?
Yeah, we're expecting to see her again. I don't know how much. I don't think it's the last time we'll see Rose.
Right, because she's in like, afterwards, I was speaking to my other mate, I was like, I think she's trans, so she gets chose the name Rose, so that's like, because when it was obviously announced that Donna's daughter was going to be called Rose, you're like, oh, Donna's named her daughter Rose after, subconsciously after Billie Piper's Rose. And it's like, oh, she's trans, you got to choose her own name. And now and then I just tweet. I was like, oh, wait a minute, she had all those memories. It's just a subconscious thing as her subconsciously knitting all those Doctor Who monsters.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. There was a funny tweet I saw from Bryn Mitchell. She herself is trans and said, Doctor Who got one thing right about trans girls. We love to wear the exact same denim jacket every day. You do one of Yasmin Finney actually said, denim jacket, please. That's what Rose will be wearing. And it's like, you sure? Yep, denim jacket. Trust me. And I think of all those often newspaper columnists, those kind of quote-unquote white feminists. Was it the Squeeze Squad they were called, Emma?
Yeah.
Back in the day. So many of them now are just like, ugh.
Ooh, they're big mad now.
Yeah, I can't like David Tennant anymore. Like, good, do one. As with said, yeah, you people aren't welcome here anymore. Okay, if just any leftover stuff, additional observations, we might have Emma.
One thing I would say, if I'm going to be, again, extremely kind of a touch harsh on this episode, with people sort of coming in with like, oh, it was so great and stuff. I was like, it does feel a little bit a touch like RTD's writing his own fan fiction a little bit. You can imagine him going on fanfiction.net on AO3 saying, this is what would happen now after season, my interpretation of season 4.5. What would happen if we resolved the meta crisis and this sort of thing. So I was like, it is kind of a little bit like he's writing his own fanfic a touch here. So I'm not mad at it. but that's kind of what it made me feel like a little bit related to that, is that obviously I know that David Tennant's playing the Doctor again, he's got his old face back, but is he going to be demonstrably different to the 10th Doctor? Literally wholesale copy-paste 10 to 14.
Well, we've already had that bit where he says he loves Donna, didn't we? And then he catches himself and he's like, oh, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, no, I meant sort of more personality-wise or anything like that. Because obviously as well, by the time the 10th Doctor met Donna, he was different from how he was when he first was knocking around with Rose. You know, he had changed. There's the whole thing about when the bloody meta crisis happens and they go on to the alternative Earth, and the 10th Doctor has a big speech about who he was when he first met Rose and that sort of thing. So I'm like, okay, if you want to just sort of kind of pluck him out from season, you know, basically right at Journey's End and plonk him here, that's a little bit like, it would be nice for him to be a bit different in some way, shape or form than the 10th Doctor, rather than being a straight Control-C, Control-V.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Jonathan?
I started this episode by, despite the fact I gave it 9 out of 10 because it was just ridiculously entertaining, by saying it was trash. And that's because I think Russell T Davies wanted to bring a silly episode. It's basically a B-movie episode, is this?
The Meep is a B-movie type of villain.
Yeah, exactly. And I want now to see him take what I know he can do with serious stuff like It's a Sin that he's shown in It's a Sin and years, and bring that to Doctor Who. And I'm more interested to see if that's progressed, because I always did have a bit of an issue with Russell T Davies's former tenure in charge. And you got a little bit of this because you had we can do something that male presenting people can't do, and that's Let It Go. And obviously the first thing that anyone thinks of now is when you say Let It Go is Frozen. Which I assume that again was a direct reference. So I want to see him bring some seriousness now. Right, come on. You've had your silly fun. Let's step
I think he's about to, I did tweet this. I think he's going to ruin us. He's going to break our hearts, like, horribly. And we're not ready.
Because as much as I didn't really like the End of Time episodes, the finale in terms of how the regeneration happens was very much a knife into the side. And you imagine something's going to happen similar with this Doctor. Jonathan, you mentioned the whole letting it go, the meta crisis. So, could Donna not just done that at the end of Journey's End?
Well, I think the point was because she's passed it down, it was 2 hearts, and that she's matured now.
Yeah, I mean, another thing.
It's kind of my, reading.
Your headcanon to try and save it. I mean, this didn't ruin the episode, but those bits, I mean, it was another Russell Ex Machina.
Yeah, which is my issue with Russell.
Yeah, we're done. No, wait a minute, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, as a character, we haven't talked about it at all, actually. Ruth Madeley's character said, "You are so jammy," which is not my favourite episode, my favourite line of the episode. But I was like, yeah, the classic Russell hand wave.
It is. I mean, I was actually I'm glad you about to mention Ruth Madeley. I thought she was great. She's really good. I'm so glad that she will be recurring. I'm really looking forward to seeing her. I mean, I don't know about you. First thing I saw her in was the Russell show years and years. I've seen her in a couple of other things. I've always enjoyed her as an actor. And usually I hadn't seen her play someone kind of this authoritative, but she's really, she's happy kind of going eyeball to eyeball with Tennant or whoever. You can see she's not a character that's going to be bullied, and she's not like a fragile little woman in a wheelchair. None of that. I loved the line with the unit soldier. They're going up to the spaceship, stairs, and she's like, don't make me the problem, just go do your job. That's a nice line for...
Yeah, that was cool.
Probably people like us that will get awkward around this. She's like, no, you're not going to use me as an excuse for not doing your fucking job. Go and sort the fucking spaceship. What are you looking at me for? Even though she didn't have a lot of screen time, she was great with what she did.
And again, with the James
it's nice that it's not just Kate and Osgood that work at Unit.
Yeah,
there's someone else.
Yeah, it's a total opposite from the cuts. Like, oh no, yeah, cutbacks. Like, oh no, it's a total opposite now. We got money.
We got budget.
Big new unit, big new shiny building. Shirley Bingham, I don't know if we'll see her again in these specials, but we are going to see her again. And she was an added plus whenever she's on screen. Even though, interesting with Unit, I don't know if this is in line with how they normally behave, but they seem to have little time for press freedom. Because you got the BBC, I think it's the comedian Matt Green, the BBC reporter, interviewing the Unit, just grab him and chuck him in the back of a van.
In a van. Yeah, they have got a bit previous with, there's an episode called The Demons, which has quite a lot of telly around Unit, and the brig has absolutely no time for them. And it's bloody hilarious.
This might be nothing. It was just something I noticed in the rewatch. So you know Rose's friend, the neighbour, the South Asian neighbour?
Yeah.
The kid. When the battle is happening on the road, Everyone else is fast asleep, by the way. But he is in quite a lot of cutaways. Again, not reacting great. He's like, you realise your house might be about to fall into a sinkhole. You're almost smiling about it all.
Pretty chill about it.
Yeah, but I just noticed he's in a lot of cutaways. Like, we're going to see him again? Like, even if it's just in these specials? We just saw him quite a bit in cutaways for me to think that was an accident. It's the, remember the face, because we're going to see that kid again and we don't want to have to do a Basil exposition line to explain who this kid is.
Or is he going to be like that kid in, I can't remember which episode it is. It might be Crimson Aura with the one that Strax talks to. Thomas.
Then, at the end of the road, turn right.
What?
Bear left for a quarter of a mile and you'll have reached your destination.
Thank you. What is your name?
Thomas, sir. Thomas.
I think you will do well, Thomas.
It's like one of those sort of silly characters like that, almost.
Yeah, it might be nothing. You might never see him again. It just felt, on that rewatch, I'm like, we're seeing him a bit much. For someone you might only see in one episode. So maybe we'll see him again. One thing mentioned about the TARDIS, and I noticed it dispenses coffee, not tea. A very American drink. At first I thought, is that something for the new paymaster at Disney? And I thought it was interesting how the TARDIS rejected the US drink that got spilt.
I was going to say, it doesn't dispense custard creams anymore. A proper British biscuit.
Nah.
It's now full of horrible foreign coffee.
Yeah, it'll dispense like Twinkies and Hershey bars. And what's this horrible US Milk Duds? Because the Tennant said the TARDIS has no problem with spilt tea. TARDIS is fine with that.
I will sort of give a little bit of a whinge at Russell, actually. Abigail said beep about 3 million times after this episode finished. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Just toddlers up and down the country, isn't it? Just meet. You realise that the toy's probably going to have that like sound function. You press the button. Basically, this episode felt to me in many ways like a bit of a second chance. Because I know there are some fans that really didn't like what happened with Donna at the end. I think partly because she didn't choose to have her memory wiped and felt like maybe a second chance to correct that.
All the people who listen to this who are sort of aged between kind of 20 and 25, welcome to your childhood being repackaged to you as nostalgia, which has happened to us about 5 or 6 years ago. This is for all the kids who were 8 who watched that and were traumatised and never watched another minute of Doctor Who after that.
Yeah, I mean, I do know even older fans that were like, who Donna is their favourite, and just like, I've been waiting 15 years for this. I think it felt like a second chance for that, a second chance for the show, to think where we were like a year, 2 years ago. Even like in a second chance of like, for people who have certain opinions about transgender people, and like, well, maybe we don't have to do it like this. We don't have to depict them in this way. We don't have to depict human beings as subhuman. A lot of it felt like a second chance, a chance to do something good with this show again. And I do that to the overall feeling around so much of the fandom. Because you obviously mentioned looking at the dark recesses of social media, Emma, and a friend of mine did as well. And it's definitely there. But I do think the general stuff from what I'm seeing is like, oh, thank fuck. Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Wasn't that fun?
That was the general... I was quite surprised, actually, by that. I really thought, especially from like a lot of the old Doctor Who heads that I know, I thought, oh, God, they're all going to have hated that. But when we kind of very tentatively went back on social media after the episode, yeah, it was overwhelmingly positive. And from like all the old gits that I know as well, which was quite refreshing. I think it really was sort of only the loudest, sort of most terminally brain-rotted dickheads of the internet that were kind of came to the surface. But like also like the takes about Ruth Bailey in the wheelchair as well.
Yes, I did see that one.
While she in a wheelchair.
Yeah, she crossed her legs, therefore she's not disabled, is she?
Oh, God.
Is this who Ella Braverman's daughter count?
It's a hot tip. People in wheelchairs don't necessarily have to stay in them all the time.
No, some of them can actually.
Yeah.
Don't need them all the time.
Yes.
All these people work for the Department of Work and Pensions, surely.
Probably. Yeah. But the general feeling was positive, and it was. I honestly actually can't remember the last time that was. It's not like we haven't had good episodes since then. Like, look, again, we're not going to completely trample on Chibnall.
We've done that enough.
We've done that a lot. His era had good episodes in it, but I don't ever remember coming away from one of his episodes where the general feeling was, oh, what a really fun 45 minutes or a fun hour that was.
When we sat down to watch it, Rory was like, this is the first time I've been excited to watch Doctor Who in ages.
I just felt quite a lot of anxiety for us three. It's sort of the anxiety I feel before I have to watch the Lions play football.
Well, yeah.
No, that kind of horrible, like, oh, I don't want to, but I've got to watch it, that sort of thing. Obviously, that feeling went away very quickly. But I do sort of, again, the cynical part of me, the kind of the warrior part of me goes, we're just flogging nostalgia. And once we're past these 3 episodes and we're kind of getting into Shooty, is that feeling going to last? And I was going to say, it does feel a little bit like you say, Shay, you know, we've had good episodes since season 4. A lot of very good Doctor Who has been on, including in Jodie's era. People coming back to it saying, oh, thank Christ, this has been shit since 2008. No, it hasn't. There's been very excellent and fun and witty and, you know, emotional and important episodes that have been on since. So, like, if you're a person who's coming back to it after a long break, I implore you to go and look at it, because there's some really good stuff, and it's all there now for you on bloody everything, on Disney Plus and on iPlayer. My worry is, you know, the clock is ticking on this kind of nostalgia thing. Once, obviously, we lose David Tennant again and Catherine Tate again, and then we're on to Shooty and Millie, then I hope people give them a fair shake, and we're not going to get this coded language of their writing should be better, which means I don't want to see a brown person in the TARDIS.
Well, Christmas is when we'll start to find out.
Yep, Christmas is going to be the litmus test. Or not so much Christmas, because Christmas is always a bit weird, because, like, you had the kind of novelty episode element of it and all that sort of thing. The real litmus test is going to be, you know, in March or April, probably be Easter again.
Yeah, spring apparently, yeah. We're getting it.
So in spring, once we're kind of in episode 3 and 4, the grumbles start happening, and then people remembered why they wanted Russell to go in the first place and all that sort of thing. That's when the shoe's on the other foot, and where are we going to be then?
That has been, I mean, well, the 50th anniversary was after 2008. That was outstanding. And some of that stuff we've spoken about on some of our more recent episodes of this podcast. So if we end, Jonathan, with our MVP for the episode, who was your episode MVP?
I have to say it's Russell T Davies for bringing the fun back.
I mean, that was the thing. It was I think a friend said to me, "What do you think of that?" I just said, "Oh, that was fun, wasn't it? Wasn't that nice? Was that a good hour?" Emma, who was your MVP of the Star Beast?
I'm going to take Catherine Tate, who's dangerously approaching GOAT status in terms of Doctor Who companions.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about her much, and just like when she does become the Dr. Donna again, what's the first thing she says?
I gave away my money.
Ignition in 75.
Right, but I gave away all my money. And do you know why, Doctor? I gave it away to be like you, so I could be kind, so I could be nice, so I could be helpful.
That scene is excellent, because that's the thing. The Dr. Donna is still Donna. That is the first thing Donna would say, and that's good, because you have the and we saw in like her series 4 that the coarseness of her in terms of how she acts around people is actually concealing real anxiety and like self-esteem issues.
But why me?
Because you're special.
Oh, I keep telling you, I'm not.
No, but you are. Oh. You really don't believe that, do you? I can see, Donna, what you're thinking. All that attitude, all that lip, because all this time, you think you're not worth it.
Stop it.
Shouting at the world because no one's listening.
It's not just concealing that, it's also concealing just her worry as a mother. You do realise, just like Sylvia constantly worries about Donna, she constantly worries about Rose. And part of the reason she has no hesitation in taking on the, abilities of the Doctor again is because Rose is down there. And if I don't do this, Rose is probably going to die. So there's an additional layer to the character. So she's still recognisable from what she was, but you then add motherhood into it. And there's an extra layer for Catherine Tate to play with. So my MVP is David Tennant. From the very first second he's on screen when he lands in that TARDIS, there's just no doubt to me that this is the Doctor. I know he's done this before, so it's not new to him. But usually when we see a new Doctor for the first time, it's like kind of wearing a new pair of shoes. They may fit, but they're not comfortable yet. It takes time for all of them to get it. Same with Tennant. But he hasn't played this character for a while. It's been 10 years. And he just slipped into it immediately. I would sleep on just how easy he made it look, because it's definitely not easy. I think he's very similar to the 10th, and I think it was on the one show, he said it's not going to be that different. And I think there were jokes of what should I do, like wear a hat and do a funny voice now. But there were slight differences. Like, if we think back to like his 10th, he was always so energetic and sometimes almost like cloyingly bouncy and optimistic at times. And some of the verbal tics, the oh yes and well and that kind of stuff. And there was none of that, I don't think, here. He actually felt a little bit more serious, a little bit more austere, a little bit more about business. We don't see him kind of that upbeat that we saw him as the 10th, really, until he sees the TARDIS again. he just put a jacket on, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the Doctor. Immediately, like, I didn't question, not that I ever question it with anyone, but there is, I think we've seen it with all the previous ones, it's like, you're almost there. Like, we'll have it with Shoot. It's like, you're almost there, you haven't got it yet. You can't speak the language fluently, but you'll get there. And he is totally fluent. It's the kind of thing that, I'm glad he's not, but it's like, oh, you could actually play this character forever, couldn't you? Like, you just know this character. The way that, like, Sylvester Stallone knows Rocky Balboa, just knows every inch of this person. Yeah, I do definitely think that deserves a mention, because I actually think, and he is obviously the Doctor, just carrying the episode. And I know it's only 2 more weeks, and we're all looking forward to Shoot. You're all excited for him, but I'll probably miss Tennant again when he's gone. Like, the moment will come for his regeneration, and there'll be part of me that's like, oh no, that's not easy to do.
Thing is, though, don't you sort of feel a bit like this has got to be it for him, though?
Oh yeah.
Like, we can't keep beating this horse.
No, I agree, and like even he might look a bit too old come the 70th anniversary. So this could be the final time, at least on screen. Or if he's on screen, it'll be kind of like the way they've kind of done, like with the Guardians of the Edge with Jodie's last episode or something like that. Yeah, something like
that. That would be fine. But I mean, like this sort of like 4 episodes of it. I mean, you can't put this toothpaste back in the tube. This is done now. Yeah, probably not. And I'm sure Dave as well. We'll give him a good send-off. So there is part of me that's like, I don't want him to do this full time, but I'm not disappointed that he's doing it, again, for just a little bit longer. So do you have anything else to add, or we can end there?
I'm good.
That's it for me.
If you have any thoughts on what we've just spoken about, you can email us at analysingdoctor@gmail.com. That's analysing spelled with an S, and we are also on Twitter and Instagram at analysingdw. So Emma, Jonathan, thank you for both being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. And we will be back next week to talk about Wild Blue Yonder. Until next time. Our logo was courtesy of Scott Matteson. His work can be found at planetrisecreative.com and on Twitter at planetrise. Our theme tune is by Mike Mould. We can be reached at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com and on Twitter at analysingdw.